Shalom, friends. Welcome to another Shear in Masechet Berachot, Gemara Berachot, dealing with blessings. I'm Eliyahu Shear from Chesed Ve'emet. You can find my site at www.lovingkindness.co. We're currently on page 7a, that's Zayin Amud Aleph. We're dealing with a fascinating subject which speaks about the idea that in the days of Bilam and Balak with Moshe Rabbeinu, that Bilam wanted to curse the Jewish people. And actually, the story goes that what we've been learning about is that there's a particular time that God is angry each day, or as we'll learn later, exactly how that works. And if a person understands exactly when that moment is, he can lock into the moment. And with his words, when he says something negative, he can cause a reaction to take place in this world through locking in onto the anger of God. And when God is angry and one says things that relate to others in a way of anger, then the words that one says at that point in time can actually have an effect. Now, Bilam, we learned before, had this unique ability to know exactly when this moment was. And that is why he was chosen by King Balak to curse the Jewish people, because he had this particular talent. He was a magician, and he had a particular talent in which he knew exactly when this moment was to curse the Jewish people. And so therefore he was waiting for that right moment where he would curse the Jewish people and fulfill what it was that Balak wanted from him, to destroy the Jewish people, and he would claim his reward from Balak, and so on and so forth. And nevertheless, we learned that in those days, this is what happened. We read from last week, V'hayinu de kamar le Bilam le Balak. This is what Bilam had said to Balak. Ma ekov, how can I curse? Lo kabo el, because God has not cursed. Uma ezom, and how can I be angry? Or as it's translated here, how can I condemn? Lo za'am Hashem. God himself has not condemned, which means that Bilam was unable to grab hold of that moment when God was angry to curse the Jewish people. We learn that in those days, it turns out that God was not angry. Then we continued and we said, how much is this anger? How long does it last for? And we learned before, it said, rega, for a moment. V'kama rega, how long is this moment? Omar Rabbi Avin says, V'itema Rabbi Avina, some say it was Rabbi Avin who said it, rega kamemre. The moment that God is angry, that time period is just the moment that it takes, the amount of time that it takes to say the word rega. We discussed very briefly a very famous word in Hebrew, the word rega. Rega means just a moment, hold on a second. And the moment that God is angry takes as long as it takes to say the word rega. So work that out more or less. Umenalan de rega ratach. And how do we know that? Where do we know from that God is angry only for a moment? Shenema, because the verse says, Ki rega ba'apo chayim biritzono, that God's anger is just for a moment, but the reality is that his life, chayim biritzono, life for a lifetime, that is his favor is for a lifetime. His desire is for a lifetime, which means throughout the day, throughout all of life, God really wants to bestow favor. And then throughout the day, there is this brief moment which God gets angry. If you want, say, mehacha, we can learn from another verse that God is angry for a moment in time every single day. Where do we know this from? Because the verse says, hide for me for just about a moment until the anger passes by, which means to say that the anger lasts for this time period called a rega. The Gemara continues, Va'emas risach. When is God angry? When does this happen? Omar Abaye said, V'hanach tlat sha'ei kamay sat. In those 3 hours in the early morning, Kikivara karbalta the tarnagola, v'ka'ei achad kara. It's the 3 hours in the morning when the crest of the rooster turns white, and it stands on one foot, stands on one leg. If you would pay attention in the first 3 hours of the day, take a look at the rooster. There is a certain moment in time where apparently the crest turns to a white color and the rooster stands on one foot. Let's just take a look at these points over here. That the Holy One, blessed be, is angry. There are, of course, many verses in which the wrath of God is mentioned. However, the question was if there is a fixed period of anger each day with no direct connection to specific transgressions. Now we see over here the crest of the rooster. We have a picture here of the rooster, and this is its crest over there, and apparently it turns white. And now we continue. Kol shata v'shata nami ka'ehaki. The Gemara answers and says, every single moment, it happens all the time, that it stands in this way, the rooster stands in this way, and therefore it's quite difficult to know what type of a sign are we talking about. Kol shata, no. The Gemara answers, every single hour, isbe shuraike sumake. The truth is that there are red streaks that are found in this crest. Bahi shata, but at this moment in time, when God is angry, leis be shurake sumake, it does not have those streaks of red in it. So therefore, this is the sign that we can use to determine when God's anger comes about. Just pay attention. Look at the rooster in the 3 hours of the early morning. Take a note of its crest. And when you see that those streaks disappear and the rooster is standing on one leg, that's the time if a person would lock in to when God's anger happens and say something nasty about somebody else, or of course in the way of a curse, that the curse could actually take effect. Now the Gemara continues and says, Hahu mina dahava bishvavu say the Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. There was this particular heretic that was in the neighborhood of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. And here over in the notes over here, he brings down heretic. This heretic belonged to one of the many sects of heretics that were prevalent at the time. The heretics were primarily Christian and non-Christian Gnostics who had significant expertise in the Bible. They sought proof in the Bible for their belief in duality and in God's rejection of Israel. They also tried to undermine the significance of the Bible by raising internal contradictions. In their war against Jews and Judaism, these heretics often resorted to incitement and slander before the Roman authorities. The problem became so acute that the sages were forced to add a 19th blessing to the Amidah prayer. The blessing of the heretics, V'lamal shilim al tisikva, that's the bracha that we say, which is against these heretics who spoke so badly against the Jewish people, reporting them, slandering them. And we pray to God every day that there shouldn't be these people who can have such an effect against the Jewish people, praying for the demise of these heretics and slanderers. This is the prayer that we recite. There were originally only 18 blessings in the Shemona Esrei, hence its name, Shemona Esrei, 18. But then there was this additional blessing that was necessary to be recited because there were these individuals that were slandering the Jewish people. Now, at this period in time over here, we see that there was a story that there was this particular heretic who lived in the neighborhood of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, the great tzaddik, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. And he used to come and disturb him a lot with all sorts of verses. So these people used to come. There are such individuals today as well who like to come and prove their way or their religion, and they want to show us through various verses why it is that what they say is the truth. And very often they twist things. Sometimes they take things that's a simple superficial value, and at other times their translation is totally incorrect. And so therefore they feel that they have an argument against us. And of course, we can argue backwards and forwards. We can debate it. We know that there have been many times in history where the Jewish people have debated these matters. Well, often the debates go nowhere. And at the end of the day, the people who begin to make their preaching or come to prove why it is that what we do is wrong or what they do is correct, they come really to waste our time, and they go back to their lives as usual, happy with what they've done. and it could be that they're a danger to the Jewish people. As a matter of interest, many times there are also Jewish people that have this bad habit, let's say, to also come along with various proofs as to why other religions might be correct, and so on and so forth. And very often they begin to engage rabbis in debate, spending many, many hours with various verses, again, the same idea, proving why it is that the other religion could be correct, and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, if we engage in these arguments with such people like that, most often what happens is we waste our time and nobody walks away any the wiser. We only have a certain amount of time each day to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. We have a Torah to study. We have 63 tractates of Talmud to get through. We have 24 books of the Tanakh to get through. We have midrashim that go through the entire Tanakh. We have commentaries on all of these areas of Torah. We have the Shulchan Aruch. We have the Tur. We have the commentaries that go on the Halacha. We have so many books. Then we have the Zohar. We have so much to get through. If we're going to be spending our time debating for hours on end different verses of the Torah to prove why I'm right and you wrong, and so on and so forth, we'll never get to the end of it. And ultimately, we'll both walk away having lost out on the opportunity of gaining something during that period of time that we could have been studying. I like to tell a very brief story. You'll find it also on my YouTube videos, and you can see it with a video as well to see exactly how to understand it. But in fact, there was a story told, I heard it personally from Rabbi Simcha Wasserman. And Rabbi Simcha Wasserman was the son of Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, who was killed by the Nazis. And Rabbi Simcha Wasserman tells a story that when we find ourselves against a person who wants to come with all sorts of proofs as to why it is that their way is correct, and they begin to go in all sorts of debates using verses and things like that, he says the way to answer such individuals is not to get involved in a debate, but rather we must behave towards them like a scenario of a person who's building a home. And when they build this home, this beautiful big home, and they need to carry things from one part of the building to another, and there's heavy cement, and there are bags of bricks, and so on and so forth, that need to be lifted from one place to the other in order to build the home, then there are two ways that one could do it. One way we could do it is to physically hold each brick, or try to hold the cement, or whatever we're trying to do, and lift it up and carry it up all the stairs, and then come down the stairs again and lift up the next brick. Or alternatively, we can use another method to get the bricks from one location to the other. And it works much faster, much better, saves us all the strain and heaviness. And that's by using the machine that we can use, which helps us to do it. That's called a crane. We attach the bricks to the crane, we push the button, and as soon as we push the button, immediately the crane lifts up the bricks and has no difficulty lifting up this tremendous weight and bringing it to the correct location. So too, says Rabbi Simcha Wasserman, the idea when we come to argue with a person who has all sorts of proofs with verses and things like that, if we're going to engage in debate, we're going to get nowhere. You know what we need to do? Instead, we need to just simply teach them the Torah. Read the words in the Torah itself. Don't engage in an argument with all sorts of verses, because that's like trying to take the bricks up one by one. And ultimately, it's just too heavy a task. Instead, we need to take the crane itself, which is the Torah itself, push the button, and let the crane do the work itself. A person who studies Torah itself will see the truth of what the Torah is. He doesn't need any further proof to tell him this verse contradicts that verse, and therefore let's see why my verse is correct, and so on and so forth. Instead, study the Torah. Open up the Chumash, open up the Tanakh, open up the Talmud, open up the Shulchan Aruch, see what's written there, see what the Zohar says, see what the writings of the Arizal say, see what all of these great people say, because they tell us exactly what the Torah is all about. And we don't need to engage in any sort of an argument with these people. Now here we see this very story taking place. So we can imagine how it affected Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. This particular heretic was found in the neighborhood, and he used to come and bother him with all sorts of verses proving to him why his religion was the correct religion, why what he was doing, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, was incorrect. It happened one day. And what he did one day is he took a rooster and he stood it up between the legs, between between the legs of the bed. And he was staring at this rooster. Of course, we know what he was staring for because we just learnt there's a certain time when the rooster changes the crest changes its color, and if you can get to that particular point in time and make your curse, it will have an effect. Savar, so he held. Kimatahi shata, when that time would come about, meaning to say that the rooster would be standing on one leg and the crest would turn white and all the red streaks would leave it. Alatie, I'll come and I'll curse this individual. Kimatahi shata, when that time arrived, nayev, he fell asleep. Oh, he fell asleep? What does that mean he fell asleep? Omar, so he said, Shma minei, we learn from this, Lav orach ara leme'ebad haki. It's not the way of the world to behave in this way. V'rachamav al kol ma'asav, kasiv. And the verse says that God's mercy is upon all of his creatures, which means to say that, number one, we have to be patient with everybody. Even the person who comes with all of his excuses as to why his verses are correct, why his religion is correct, nevertheless, God has mercy on all the creatures in the world. He created everybody in the world to fulfill a particular task, and we must value that as well. So we can't go around simply cursing everybody that does something that bothers us. We have to also say that if God created this person, the person must have a particular role to play in the world. And that doesn't mean to say that the person who is disrupting somebody else's life should not be reprimanded and dealt with. And if he's done something wrong to hurt another person, he needs to be dealt with in a criminal court or whatever the case may be. He is liable for his actions. We're not saying that a person can just do whatever he wants to do. But nevertheless, Rabbi Shear ben Levi came along and he was ready to curse this person because the person was bothering him. And he knew exactly what to do. But by heaven, they stopped him from doing this because had he been awake, and had he noticed the rooster changing its colors, he would have cursed, and the curse would have had an effect. Ukasiv, and there's another verse that says something else. Gam anosh letzaddik lo tov. Also, punishing for the tzaddik is not good, which means that if a person is a tzaddik, and of course his words are more powerful than other people's words, because the more that a person purifies himself, the more his words have an effect, which means that just as he says the words immediately, the words take on an effect. Tzaddik gozer, Hashem mekayem. The tzaddik decrees, and Hashem fulfills the decree of the tzaddik, which means to say, if the tzaddik decrees something good, then the words take an effect for good. If the tzaddik decrees something bad, then the words take an effect for the bad. But the verse teaches us over here in the book of Proverbs, in the book of Mishlei, that for a tzaddik to punish somebody is also not a good thing, even though the person is liable for his behavior. But nevertheless, it is not commensurate with the qualities of a tzaddik to behave in that way and to punish everybody. We continue. So therefore, we see over here that this whole idea never worked out. And even though people might know exactly when the moment is to curse, usually we could assume that by heaven, they will stop it, unless it's for very good reason as to why God has allowed this particular thing to happen. But for those people who are feeling that they'd like to try this experiment, so the chances are you're probably not going to succeed, because it's not God's desire that we walk around cursing, knowing exactly when the moment is that God is angry and using that moment to hurt another person. The Gemara continues. Tana Mishmei de Rabbi Meir. It was taught in the name of Rabbi Meir. A new teaching. We finished with the rooster. At the time that the sun is shining in the morning, in other words, v'chol malchei mizrach u'ma'arav manichim kitreihem b'roshehem, and all the kings of the east and the west put their crowns on their heads. U'mishtachavim lechama, and they bowed down to the sun. Miyad ko'es HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Immediately God becomes angry, which means to say the Gemara is teaching us that certainly in those days, and who knows what goes on today as well, there are many things that happen. Just because we don't see everything happening doesn't mean that they don't happen. Just because there aren't cameras in every single corner of the world, therefore we don't see it, therefore it doesn't happen. Who knows? Maybe these things happen today also. But according to what happened here in the days of the Gemara, is that the kings used to awaken in the early morning And when the sun would rise and start shining, they would place their crowns upon their heads and they would bow down to the sun. They would worship the sun like idolaters. And God would become very angry. So again, we see over here that according to this teaching, since this occurs in the early hours every day, God becomes angry at his world at that moment every day, which corresponded to the fact of the rooster. Sorry, so it wasn't exactly a new subject that we were speaking about, but it's corresponding to the rooster and the early hours of the morning, and that's when the whole thing took place, that the rooster's crest changes color, and so on and so forth. Now we come to a new teaching. Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Yosef, it is better to have one strike, in other words, one criticism, one, as he translates here, a regret in the hearts of a person, yoter, mikama malkiot, more so than numerous lashings. It's better to have one regret when a person feels upset about something that he's done. Better to have one regret than to have a number of lashes, physical lashes that cause bleeding. Better that you regret it. Why? Because when a person is regretting something, he feels the pain inside himself, as compared to if he hurts himself physically, and then after a period of time, all of that pain leaves a person. Let's see what the note says over here on the side. A single regret in one's heart is preferable to many lashes. With this statement, the sages display a profound understanding of the essence of education. One does not learn a lesson by having it beaten into him. Rather, he learns when he is approached in a sensitive manner. Genuine awe of God does not come through fear, but through profound love. This method of teaching, which is widely accepted in the contemporary world, has its roots in the prophetic statements of the sages. So how do we know all this? That it's better that a person has a regret or one rebuke or whatever it's necessary, more so than if he is going to be lashed numerous times. Because the pasuk says, "V'ritva es na'aveha," and it says over there, and she chases her lovers. And then we continue the verse over here, which we're reading in the English, but she does not overtake them. She seeks them, but she will not find them. This particular lady is searching for all of her lovers. V'omra, and then she said, "Elka v'ashuva el ishi harishon." She says now, I will return back to my first husband. Ki tov li az me'ata, because it's better for me to return back to my husband than what I'm going through now. Which means to say that what was happening over here with this particular lady that we're talking about, she was searching after all of her lovers, and then she realized at the end of the day that the lovers are not really as special as her husband. And she turns around and she says, I will go after, let me go back to my husband who I really cared for in the first instance. Let me not be swayed by all the lovers who are distracting me. We see over here that what was better is that there was this rebuke or there was this regret in her heart. More so, it did much more to her than rather being physically have a physical strike against her, which would be less hurtful, because once the pain goes, she'll be back to her normal self again, according to what the pasuk is saying. Reish Lakish Amar, Reish Lakish said, Yeser mimeya malkios. You know how great a regret is? It's even greater than 100 strikes, 100 lashes. Sheneemar, because the pasuk says, Teichas ge'ara b'mevin mehakos kasil meya. In place of, it's better, in other words, to have one rebuke to an understanding person, then there should be a strike to, if we're striking a fool, even 100 times. Better that there's just going to be one rebuke. It's going to do far better than even 100 lashes to a fool. For Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Yosi, the Gemara continues, says Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Yosi, Shloisha Devarim Bikesh Moshe, new subject. There were three things that Moshe requested Mifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He. V'nasan lo, and Hashem gave Moshe these things. Bikesh Tishrei Shechina al Yisrael v'nasan lo. Moshe requested from Hashem that the Shekhinah should dwell amongst the Jewish people. That was one of his requests. V'nasan lo, and he gave it to him. Sheneemar, how do we know that? Because the pasuk says, Haloi belechtecha imanu. Surely when you will go with us. So what does this mean over here? Let's just read the full pasuk. Is it not in that you go with us, so that we are distinguished, I and your people, from all the people that are on the face of the earth? The request, is it not that you go with us, refers to the resting of the divine presence upon Israel. So that's the first thing that was requested. And Moshe convinced Hashem to cause his dwelling, his Shekhinah, his indwelling, to rest amongst the Jewish people. Bikesh shelo tishrei Shekhinah al umas ha'olam. Moshe requested that the Shekhinah should not rest amongst the nations of the world, meaning to say that he wanted that Hashem should just simply rest his divine presence amongst the Jewish people. V'nasan lo, and he gave it to him. Shene'emar, as the pasuk says, v'nifilinu ani v'amcha, which means to say, so that we are distinguished, I and your people, and as we see the end of the verse there, from all the people of the face of the earth. Moshe asked Hashem, please let us be distinguished as a nation from amongst all the nations of the earth, in that you will do something that shows this unique relationship. And God did. Then Moshe requested from Hashem, from the Holy One, blessed be He, to inform him of his ways. He wanted to know how he works. He asked Hashem, please teach me how you work. V'nasan lo. And it says, apparently at this point in time, that Hashem gave this to Moshe. Shene'emar, how do we know that? Because the verse says, Hodiyeni na es derachecha, show me now, or show me please, your ways. Or malefanav, he said to him, meaning Moshe said to Hashem, Ribono shel olam, master of the universe, mipnei ma yesh tzadik v'tov lo, famous words. And incidentally, for those who have been following the Tanya Shiurim, so you'll know that this is how the Tanya begins its whole discussion of the different types of souls that exist in the world. And this is the Gemara from where the Tanya is actually quoting. And Moshe says to Hashem, why is it? This is what he wanted to know. This is knowing God's ways. A person who can answer these questions up, he knows God's ways. Why is it that there is a tzaddik who prospers? A tzaddik who it's good for him. He does well. He's a good guy. He's a tzaddik. He does the right thing. V'tov lo. And he prospers, which means he's successful. We know that there are such tzaddikim in the world. There are tzaddikim who have everything that goes well for them. V'yesh tzaddik v'ralo. And then there is a tzaddik, a righteous person, and it doesn't go so well for him. He doesn't prosper. It's pretty bad for him. He's suffering. Yesh rasha v'tov lo. There is an evil person who has it good, an evil person who prospers. Everybody knows that quality of person. He does bad in everything that he does, and yet he's doing just fine. He owns many homes. He goes on vacation 4 times a year, 6 times a year. He has 6 cars. He fancy cars, sports cars. He travels the world, all sorts of things this person does. But he's an evil person. Everybody knows that his actions are bad. People know that he's up to no good, yet he's prospering. V'yesh rasha v'ralo. But there is another category of person as well, and that is the evil person who suffers. So there are different categories. Tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik v'ralo. There's rasha v'tovlo, rasha v'ralo, and there's even the Beinoni, which we're not discussing at this point in time. Omar lo, Hashem answered back to Moshe. He said to him, Moshe, tzaddik v'tov lo. I want to tell you that if you want to know the answer to your problem as to why it is that there is a tzaddik who prospers, I'll tell you. The tzaddik who prospers, it's tzaddik ben tzaddik. He is a righteous person who is the son of a righteous person. That is why he prospers, because he himself is good, and he is the son of somebody else who is also tremendously good. Again, when we say that he is good, we don't just mean he's a nice fellow. He's a good fellow. He's a nice guy. But rather we mean he's an actual tzaddik. He's a righteous individual in every sense of the word. We're talking about a person who is completely Torah observant. Shabbos, kashrus, the laws of Taharas HaMishpacha. He gives charity. He doesn't speak Lashon Hara. He works on his levels of Kedusha and holiness and all these different things. That's what we talk about as a tzaddik. Now, the second category is, says Hashem, tzaddik v'ralo. The tzaddik who has it bad, who suffers, he's tzaddik ben rasha. He's a tzaddik, but unfortunately, he is the son of an evil person. Now, he is righteous himself, but his father was evil. But we know such cases as well. When we speak about the kings of Israel, we know, for example, people like Chizkiyahu, who had Menashe. Menashe, of course, was an evil king, but Chizkiyahu was a righteous king. So we have different levels from one to the next, that sometimes you can have a righteous individual that gives birth to an evil individual that gives birth to a righteous individual. These are all parts of the secrets of creation. We don't understand exactly how this works. That in itself is understanding God's ways. But nevertheless, on the simple level over here, Moshe wants to know how God works in these simple levels over here. So tzaddik ben tzaddik is tzaddik v'ralo, tzaddik ben rasha. Rasha v'tovlo, the rasha who has it good, he prospers. He is rasha ben tzaddik. The reason that he prospers is because although he's a wicked person, he is the son of a righteous person. And therefore he receives some sort of a reward because of his father's good actions. And we know such cases as well like that, of course. And there are many people in the world that, as I said, like Menashe, for example, who although he's an evil person, but his father was righteous. And because of that, God continues to bestow his goodness upon the evil person in the merit of the good that the father did, who was the tzaddik. Rasha v'ralo, what do we say about the evil person who has it bad, who suffers? He is Rasha ben Rasha. He is a person who is evil, who is also the son of an evil person. Wicked, the son of the wicked one. The Gemara continues. Omar Mar, the master said, tzaddik v'tov lo. I'll explain it this way. The tzaddik who has it good, he's prospering, he's doing well. Tzaddik ben tzaddik. He is the tzaddik who is the son of the tzaddik. Tzaddik v'ralo. Now, the tzaddik who has it bad, tzaddik ben rasha. He's the tzaddik, apparently, who is the son of the evil person. Now, says Mar, Omar Mar, Ini, is that so? This is a very strange statement you've made. Vaha kasiv, isn't it written? But isn't it written? Vaha, but isn't it kativ written? Poked avon avos albanim. It says in one place in the Torah that he remembers the sin of the fathers upon the sons, which apparently means that when the fathers do bad, then God continues to bestow the punishment also upon the children, which means that children are apparently punished for the sins of their fathers. Ukasiv, and it's also written, Ubanim lo yumsu al avot, that the sons do not die on account of the fathers, which means to say, how can you say that a child is punished for the father's sins? And we have to make a contradiction of the verses on each other. One verse teaches us that God remembers the sins of the fathers upon the children, which means to say that children are punished for the bad deeds that the parent does. And the other verse says that children do not die on account of their fathers, which means to say that children do not die, they are not punished for the sake of the bad deeds that the parent does. So the master over here, whoever it was that said the statement, is raising a contradiction. On the one hand, we learned before the different categories of tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik v'ralo, rasha v'tovlo, rasha v'ralo. And on the other hand, it doesn't seem to make sense because we have this contradiction in the verses. The Gemara answers, Umashaninan, and we answer up like the following. Lo kasha. There's no contradiction here. Did you think there was a contradiction? The one verse tells us that the sons are punished because of their fathers. The other one says that the sons do not receive a death sentence. They're not punished on account of their fathers. There's no difficulty. This one is keshe'ochazin ma'aseh avoseihem b'deihem. That's when they hold on to the actions of their fathers in their hands. Which means to say that if a person continues the bad behavior of the parents, he will also be liable for what the parent did as well. And therefore, the sins of the parents are indeed continuing onto the sons. And this other case, is when they do not hold on to the actions of their fathers in their own hands, which means to say that if a person does not follow into the ways of the evil that their parent did, then the person will not be punished for the deeds of the bad deeds of the parents. But if a person does follow in the ways of the evil of their parents, then it's not only that they receive punishment themselves, but in actual fact, they receive like a double punishment. Because since they follow in the ways of their parents and they didn't learn, then the sins of the parents are meted out on the children as well. Continues the Gemara, Ella haki ka'amale. But rather, this is what he said to him, Tzaddik v'tov lo. This is really what it means. When we say that there's a tzaddik who prospers, this is what a tzaddik who prospers is all about. Tzaddik amur. He is a complete tzaddik. What does that mean exactly? He's a complete tzaddik. It means every single action that he does is in the realm of complete goodness. He never does anything wrong at all. He's absolutely perfect in the realm of being a tzaddik. Tzaddik v'ralo, when we speak about a tzaddik who suffers, is because why? He's a tzaddik she'enu gamur. It had nothing to do with how the parents work. He's the righteous one and the parent is evil, or he's righteous and the parent is righteous, and so on and so forth. But rather it referred to him himself. He, the tzaddik who has good for him, is a tzaddik gamur. It means he's a complete tzaddik. Tzaddik v'ralo. If he's a tzaddik and he has suffering, he's a tzaddik she'enu gamur. He's an imperfect tzaddik. He's still got problems. Even though he's a tzaddik, he's not on the highest level of tzaddik. Rasha v'tov lo, when we speak about the evil person who has it good, he's prospering, he's doing nicely. Rasha she'enu gamur. He is he's a rasha, an evil person, but not completely. Which means to say that he's not entirely perfect evil, and therefore, because of that, he prospers. After all, he does good. If he does good, he must receive some reward. I mean, overall, he might be a rasha, he might be evil, but nevertheless, he does good, and he's deserving of some reward. Rasha v'ralo, if we speak about the category of the evil person who suffers, it's not going so well for him. Rasha gamur, there we're speaking about a totally evil person. So when we see a case of an evil person who just doesn't get it right, everything goes wrong for this fellow, the chances are he is a complete rasha. And therefore, that is why he goes in this path that we say that things will go really bad for him. Because in essence, he is totally bad. And therefore, he receives nothing, as he says over here, nothing in this world and also nothing in the world to come. The Gemara continues. This disagrees. We're going back to another point now. We're speaking about the idea of Moshe asking this question that he wanted to know God's ways, and that and that he wanted God to fulfill his requirements in 3 ways, and God granted Moses all 3 of his requests. This is against what Rabbi Meir said. The Omar Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Meir said, Shtayim natnulo v'achat lo nasnulo. There were 2 things that were given to Moshe, and one of them was not given to him. In contrary to what we said before, that he asked for 3 things and he received 3 things, Rabbi Meir teaches that he asked for 3 things. 2 of them were given to him, but 1 was never given to him. How do we know that? Because the verse says, V'chanesi es asher achon, which means to say, I will be gracious upon the one who I will be gracious upon, which means to say that you know something. At the end of the day, why is it that a rasha, an evil person, for example, will receive good and is evil? You know what the answer is? There is no answer. Because the answer is, God says, I will bestow my favor upon the way, on wherever I will do it. You will never understand, says God to us, why it is that I've decided to bestow my goodness upon a particular person, but so I have decided. And so it is. Even though he is not deserving. And I will have mercy upon the person upon whom I will have mercy upon him. Even though he is not deserving of it. And so therefore, as we see here, according to Rabbi Meir, the way in which God conducts the world and bestows grace and mercy was not revealed even to Moses. And this is a powerful lesson for us. We have to internalize it and know that when we see the Gemara Berachot has been dealing a lot with the concepts of reward and punishment and pain, suffering, and things like that. We've read about it quite a bit already. And the one thing that comes out is that there's no real answer to why it is necessarily why a person is rewarded, why it is that a person is punished. We don't know it. Perhaps we will never know it. Perhaps when we die, we will never see the complete truth of knowing exactly why God is behaving this way to other people as well. And we know people who really do bad things, and yet they receive tremendous reward. And many times we think of ourselves as individuals, and we seem to think that we're conducting ourselves correctly, and we really are. We're trying our best. We're really not trying to hurt anybody intentionally. We're trying just to do the right thing. And every time we're stubbing our toe on some block in front of us, and the finger gets stuck in the door when we close it, and God forbid we lose money, or we don't have money to live, and all these different things happen, we say to ourselves, why? And the answer is, we don't know. We don't know why God is blessing the evil person. We don't know why God sometimes takes it out on us. We learned a whole passage as to possible reasons as to why God could be taking out his anger on us. And we even came to the conclusion that sometimes it's just Yisurim Shalahava. They're just punishments of love. What does that mean? We hope that when we die, at the very least, at that time, we will come to know why it was that God did that to us. And hopefully then we will see the love, because many times we know in our own frustrations and difficulties in this world that we don't see that love, sadly to say, even though we try and look for it. But when we're suffering, when we don't have money to pay the bills, we can't take care of ourselves, when we're hurting or we're not well, God forbid, and we say, but we're doing the right thing. Why is this happening? And that fellow over there, we see him all the time, disturbing other people, hurting other people. He seems to have it good. What's God doing? And the answer is, even Moshe Rabbeinu did not receive the answer. We're trying to puzzle it out. We're trying to work out all of the things that happen in our lives and why it happens. And we can carry on until infinity to work out possible reasons as to why God is doing these things to us. And the only answer that we can say is that when it comes to life, as the Chumash tells us in Devarim, Tamim tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha, we need to be perfectly faithful before God. In everything that we do, the simple thing is to say, what does the Shulchan Aruch ask from me? And I do it. Do I expect reward? Do I know that there's a reward? Is there a reward? I don't even know about these things. I do it because I'm told this is what I need to do. I have faith. I say this is the right thing to do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be one of the good people. And if God has to take that out on me for some reason, or I don't know why, that is what God does. I don't know why he's doing it. And if God rewards the other person just because, and even though he's a bad person, we must be careful not to make judgments and say, well, if God is rewarding him, it's a sure sign God doesn't mind if I do evil. And when I do good and God doesn't reward me, it's a sure sign God is not happy with the good that I'm doing. No. God says, and I will have favor upon the one who I'll have favor. And he says over there, I will have mercy upon the person I will have mercy upon. And there's no real answer to it. The Gemara is powerful. We can sit here for hours discussing one short Baraita in the Gemara or a Mishnah, which goes on with a subject that we think about. And what we need to do is to sit down quietly, meditate, close our eyes, think about the concepts, and realize there aren't always answers to the questions we have. And many times we turn to a rabbi. We think because maybe he learns a bit more than we have, maybe he knows all the answers. He doesn't know the answers also. Even Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't know all the answers. Vayomer. And now the Gemara continues. Vayomer, lo tuchal lirot et panai. God says to Moshe, you will not be able to see my face. What does this mean? He was speaking about this idea that, as we see over here in the English, for man shall not see me and live. Moshe was not allowed to see God's face. He requested to see God's face. What does it mean to see God's face? Well, one thing it means is to be able to see why God plans the world and does things as he does. When we look at a person in his face, we can see a lot about him. If we pay attention, take a look at a person who's a really evil person. I'm not saying that you need to think of any one particular individual, but you might conjure up certain individuals in history who have been known to be evil in the fullest sense of the word. And you think about their face for a moment and you see the features on the face are evil, are ugly, unpleasant. And then take a look, for example, at the features of a good person, a tzaddik. Usually you see the facial features are soft and gentle. You can see a lot about a person just from looking at the structure of his face. And Moshe was saying, I want to see your face, God. What he's saying is, I want to see why it is that you behave in the way that you do with everybody. I will see it on your face. When I look upon you, I will see that goodness coming out, and I will understand all these things. Nevertheless, God says, I'm very sorry, Moshe, no man is able to see my face. It's just something that's hidden. If you were to see it, you would expire, because it's impossible for a person to look upon the creator of the world, who is the master of everything, and understand it all, and then still be able to hold on to that understanding, certainly while alive, would be absolutely impossible. Tana Mishmei de Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha. It was taught in the name of Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha. Kacha Mara Kodesh Baruch Hu leMoshe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered Moshe, and he said to him the following: Kesheratiti, when I wanted to, lo ratita, you didn't want to. Meaning there was a time, Moshe, that I was prepared to show you who I was, but you didn't want to look. Now that you want to, I don't want to. Oh, very powerful lesson also. We must remember to respect people. We must respect all things. When people are saying, I'd like to give you an opportunity and help you, we must be careful to say, yes, thank you very much. I would like to take the opportunity, move on. And because sometimes when people offer and we don't take, then sometimes people turn around, and when we want to, they don't offer anymore. Well, God was showing us an example of this type of idea, not to be spiteful, of course, but there's a certain concept. Sometimes there are times of divine favor, an eitratzon, a time of divine favor. And God often says to us, now is the time to ask for your requests. At that point in time, we must use that opportunity to the best of our abilities. God offers us these eitratzon, these times of favor often. For example, if we're davening Shachris, or we're davening Mincha, or we're davening Ma'ariv, these are all times of divine favor. Since we're involved in prayer, and especially if we're davening with a minyan at that time, these are times of divine favor where we should request from God all that we need. But there are times when God's anger is in the world, like we learned before. Just very recently, just a few minutes ago, we were saying that there's times that God is angry. And of course, if God is angry and we're trying to request something from God at that point in time, we're less likely to be successful. Not because God is being nasty, but because rather God has designed the world in a certain way. We need to lock into these times that when we see God with a shining countenance towards us, things seem to be good in a positive way, we must ask God to lead us in the right direction. We must use the opportunity to become closer to God. It's a time of divine favor. So we see over here, the story goes that when I wanted to show you my glory at the burning bush, said God, you did not want to see it, as it is stated, and Moses concealed his face, fearing to gaze upon God. But now that you want to see my glory, as you said, show me your glory, I do not want to show it to you. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha interprets Moses' initial refusal to look upon God's glory negatively, as he rebuffed God's desire to be close to him. Let us just take a look at that note. When I wanted, you did not want. Now that you want, I do not want. Although the continuation of the verse in Exodus cited by Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha states, for man shall not see me and live, had Moses not concealed his face at the burning bush, he would have been permitted to witness God's glory. This statement should not be understood as an explanation of why Moses could not see God's glory. It is rather a promise to Moses that since he, master of all prophets, was not privileged to witness God's glory, no other man would be permitted to gaze upon God in the future. The burning bush took place at a moment just prior to the Exodus, at a time when Israel was on an elevated spiritual level. And as their leader, Moses would have merited a close encounter with God. Later, in the wake of their sins in the desert, that window of opportunity closed. We continue. Upliga de Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, and this disagrees with what Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Nachmani, said, Omar Rabbi Yochanan, that he said that Rabbi Yochanan said, The Omar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Omar Rabbi Yonasan, that Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani said that Rabbi Yonasan said, Bischar Shalosh Zacha L'Shalosh. It's not true. This that we said over here, that because Moshe refused to look when God offered, and therefore when Moshe said to God, can I now see? And God says, no, you didn't take the opportunity when I gave it to you, is not correct. The opposite is true. For his action of not looking, he received the reward. And this is the argument that is brought down over here in this teaching, which says, Bischar Shalosh, Zachar L'Shalosh. In the merits of three things, he merited three things. What? Bischar Vayaster Moshe Panav. In the merit that Moshe hid his face, meaning he didn't look. Zachar L'Klaster Panim. He merited that his face shone. Remember when he comes down from the mountain, he comes down holding the commandments, and his face is a cluster, has a beautiful appearance, a glow to it when he comes down from the mountain. He merited this glow because of the fact that he refused to look at the countenance of God. The opposite. When we look at the countenance of God, it's disrespectful. But Moshe was showing respect by not looking at the countenance of God that was hidden in the burning bush. And therefore he merited himself to have a shining face. Bisachar ki yarei, in the merit of the fact that he feared, Zachar, he merited that le vayiru nigeshes elav, that they feared to approach him. Which means that when Moshe came down the mountain, the Jewish people, they saw this glow upon Moshe, and they were too scared to even approach him. He looked like a godly being. I mean, he looked like a godly being in any case. But when he came down from the mountain and his face shone, the Jewish nation was completely taken aback. They were afraid to approach him. Why? Because he himself stood in awe and respect. That when God was showing himself in the fire, in the burning bush, he hid his face away. And because he feared to look upon it, he merited that the Jewish nation would fear to approach him. It was a reward. It wasn't a punishment. Bisachar mehabit, and in the merit of from looking that he didn't look, Zaka, he merited le to utemunas Hashem yabit, and to the image of God, to behold the likeness of the Lord, that he did not gaze. He was privileged to this idea, behold the likeness of the Lord. That's what he would see. He would see a vision. Let us take a look at the note here of the language. Countenance, klaster. The word klaster, the source of this word is unclear. Some maintain that it derives from the Latin, excuse my pronunciation if I'm not getting it 100% correct, kelatura, a graven image. Others claim that it derives from the Greek, and my Greek reading isn't very, very good either, so I can't read this word, which the word means image or radiance of the countenance. We continue. So therefore we see over here that Moshe Rabbeinu merited, because he didn't look, because he showed respect, he merited certain things. The next verse says that, and I will remove my hands and you shall see my back. This is basically what Moshe would come to see at that time when he asked to see the vision of who God was. Omar Rav Chana bar Bizna, Omar Rabbi Shimon Chasida, Rav Chana, the son of Bizna, said that Rabbi Shimon Chasida said, Melamed, this verse over here comes to teach us, Shear HaKadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe kesher shel tefillin. When it says that he would remove his palm or his hands, and you would be able to see my back, he's talking to Moshe. What does it mean that you would see my back? It means you would see the kesher of tefillin. Remember, we've been learning about this already, quite a lot already in this Gemara, that God wears tefillin. And here we see that when God would go past Moshe and show him the back, he would show him the connection of the back of the tefillin. Here we see on the left-hand side here a note. One can see the dalid of the tefillin. Those who are interested to know, when we put on tefillin, that the name of God is upon the tefillin that we wear. For example, on the head tefillin, there is a shin that is engraved on the head tefillin. And at the back of the tefillin, of the actual strap, there is the dalid. So already we see the shin and the dalid. And then on the finger of the hand tefillin, we produce the letter yud through the way that we fold the straps, that we wrap the straps up on our hands, and this makes up God's name, the shin, the dalid, and the yud. Also, it's interesting to note that the custom in Chabad is to put a shin also on the hand tefillin, and then of course you have the yud, which is on the finger. And in fact, when you wrap it around in a certain way, you actually get the dalid that rests on the palm as well, making up the name of God resting along the arm tefillin completely. Now, some people have the custom of doing a double dalid at the back of the tefillin. Here we see the custom of many people, perhaps most people, who do the standard one dalid. You can see there's a dalid over there. Now, this is the knot tied on the phylacteries of the head, in the back of the head, in the form of an inverted dalid, another of the letters comprising God's name, and this is the name Shakai, which is also the same name that appears on the back of a mezuzah. A very powerful name. We continue in the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Yossi, which means that he's not saying that he heard Rabbi Yossi say the statement directly, but rather he heard that somebody told him that Rabbi Yossi said the statement. It was said in his name. Kol dibur v'dibur sheyatsa mipi HaKadosh Baruch Hu letova. Every single statement that comes out of the mouth of the Holy One, blessed be He, letova, if it is for good, afilu al tanai, even if it is only on a condition, lo chazar bo, it does not return empty-handed, which means to say that God will not renege on it. Every promise made by God will be fulfilled. If God makes a promise to a prophet, and he said that he's about to perform something good, this is one of the ways, in fact, that we can test if a prophet is a true prophet or not, because when a prophet says something that is good, it must happen, because if God promises good, it will happen. Whereas, if the prophet promises something bad, then the teshuvah and ma'asim tovim, doing repentance and good deeds, can remove the evil decree and the bad won't happen. So if a prophet says that a particular bad event is about to happen, and then, for example, it doesn't happen, that does not prove one way or the other that the prophet is not a genuine prophet. But if the prophet says that something good is about to happen, and the good does not come to pass, that is a sure sign that the prophet is a fake. How do we know that? From this very teaching in the Gemara right over here, which says to us that when God promises something good, then the good is destined to happen, and it will never return. Minalan, from where do we know it from? Moshe Rabbeinu. We know it from Moshe himself, Shene'emar, because the pasuk says, Heref mimeni va'ashmideim, leave me and I will destroy them. At this point in time, God was upset with the behavior of the Jewish nation, and he decided he's going to destroy the Jewish nation, and instead he will make Moshe, otcha, you, into a powerful nation. Now God mentioned two things over here. One that was bad. I'm going to destroy the whole Jewish nation. Two, something that's good. I will turn you privately into a powerful nation. You yourself, Moshe, will become a nation to yourself, and you will be mighty and powerful. Of course, we know the Jewish people were not destroyed. But what about Moshe? Even though it was that Moshe requested mercy upon the story, meaning that God says that he's going to destroy the Jewish people, the milta of this thing, ubatla, and he nullified it. He nullified the evil decree that God was going to destroy the Jewish people. Afilu hachi, even so, okma bezarei. Nevertheless, the last part of this teaching was fulfilled through his own seed, his own progeny. Shene'emar, as the pasuk says, B'nai Moshe, the sons of Moshe, Gershon, the Eliezer, Gershom and Eliezer, Vayu b'nai Eliezer, Rechavia Harosh, and the sons of Eliezer were Rechavia, who was the chief, B'nai Rechavia, and the sons of Rechavia, Ravu Lamala, they became very, very many, or they increased. Maybe perhaps they became even great, and so on and so forth. The point being that God had taken the descendants of Moshe himself as an individual and turned his descendants into a great mini nation, so to speak. So we see over here that even though God made two promises, one promise which was bad and one promise that was good, and even though he did away with the first part of the statement because Moshe was able to mevatel it, he was able to nullify it, nevertheless, since God had promised something good, just because he nullified the first part does not mean he would have nullified the second part. Indeed, he did not nullify the second part, but rather he made Moshe into a great nation. We've reached the end of our Shear for today. I thank you very much for joining me. I'm Eliyahu Shear from Chesed Ve'emet. You can find my site on www.lovingkindness.co. If you've enjoyed this Shear or a part of it gained something, please click on the like button. Please share my video with friends and family so that we can share these videos with more people and we can all come to learn the Talmud, which is what we should be doing. And click on the subscribe button if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, and click on the bell button to be notified of future shiurim as soon as they become available. Please feel free to make a positive comment or any questions that you have. I'll be happy to answer within the YouTube channel, or alternatively feel free to contact me at my site and I will respond to you directly on email. I'd be delighted to be in touch with you. Friends, as you know, it's a difficult time for us all at the moment. We're going through this difficult period of this coronavirus. Many of us feel lost, stranded. We don't know what to do, how to get on with the day sometimes. It can even become depressing. Well, if you're feeling any of these feelings, be in touch with us. We would be delighted to try and find some way of growing together, meeting up for other shiurim which give us inspiration and help us get through these trying times that we all need to get through together. So please do feel free to be in touch. Also, check out my site, and if you're able to, do become a partner in the activities that we're involved in. We really do need your support, and you make such a great difference to us, even with the smallest amount that you can give to us to help us along our own journey, which allows us to produce more of these videos and to teach more and to learn more and to be able to give more. So please join us and let us become partners in all the activities that we're involved in together. Let's become friends and share our good times with each other. I wish you everything of the best, and I look forward to another shiur together. And I say shalom, shalom, bye-bye.